All right, welcome to the Green and Go. I'm doing too many podcasts, Mike.
Yep.
Welcome to the On My Block podcast with Mike Wall and I'm Amon Green. Mike, man, how you doing?
AG, I'm doing okay. I mean, listen, yesterday was tough.
Yes,
You know, it's.
100%.
Well, I think the term for it is we have to eat crow today.
Yeah,
Is it eat crow?
I remember. I think it was the first time I heard that statement. It was either it had to be Seattle. I heard that first time. I was like, eat crow. I say it must be a bad thing because we got our butt kicked yesterday. So
Yeah, it's not a good
put
thing.
two and two together. That's like this is not a good thing. So crow must taste like you know what. So
Yeah,
I'm
but it's
like, all
not eat
right,
quail. It's eat crow.
right, is eat crow. So yeah, I mean, watching the game. We'll get into a minute before we do all that. Between the college football and everything else going on this weekend, I'm gonna get into our sponsors of the show, Bet Online. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager all your favorite sports, contests, events with first to market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and then golf, Mike, as well. So BetOnline continues to be the top online source for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. I say that's the one I want to start getting into, those prop bets, Mike, those little interesting ones that people throw out there that I didn't even know. I'm like, yes, I know I could bet on that now.
Let me tell you what we did. You're gonna love this. So my
Okay.
fantasy football team's all business school buddies, right? So they're all over the world, right? Because it was
Right.
an international school.
Yep.
So we
And
have
this was in Oxford, right?
no, well, it was in London.
London.
But,
Okay.
But so the guy who runs the commissioner of our Dylan Torv is our commissioner is from Australia.
Right.
I almost said New Zealand. He'd kill me.
Yeah.
He's from Australia, and we decided last week to pool all of because we put money into the kitty and then first, second place winners, blah blah blah.
Right.
We decided this year, hey, we're going to start doing prop bets every week, and so we've taken like $100 Australian every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, and doing prop bets. And we hit our prop bet on Thursday night for 100 turned into like 550. And this, let me tell you, this group is fired up. I don't even know if we'll do fantasy anymore.
Wow,
We might just become degenerate gamblers. It was like Josh Allen's over on the passing, the under on the game, and then I forgot what the third one was, but
right.
Nailed it.
Nice. See, yep, that's what I want to get into. I'm gonna try it out. So head to Bet Online today, or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use the promo code BLEAV50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. Wow. Where the game starts, Mike. I'm just trying to rumble all over them words there. But now we get to the, as you said, quietly and well kept, the shit show that happened this Sunday in U.S. Bank Stadium between the green and gold Packers, between the purple and gold Vikings. I say they earned the name Vikings today. We called them Queens on me and Gilbert and Dorsey show, but they definitely earned the word Vikings. So I'll start it off with you, Mike. What you got?
Well, listen, I think the way the format we run this show is we're going to do a very minimal time about talking about the skill guys, like everybody knows. We're going to go right into the trenches as soon as we can.
Exactly.
I'm just going to say this. We look like a team who knew we were missing too many guys from the jump. And we know we're missing Jenkins and Bakhtiari. We'll talk about that later. And everybody's talking about Adams, and there's a tracker on the TV. Adams has so many catches, and our receivers have X amount. Lazard not being there is a big deal.
It's a problem.
It's a big deal. And when you start out a game and you're in, first of all, we know that playing in Minnesota is, for us, was probably the most hostile environment we could play in.
It was tough.
They are fired up. This is just like O'Connell reminds me of when Lovie Smith went to Chicago and said, hey, our number one mission is to beat Green Bay.
Yep.
Now, everybody's number one mission is to beat the division winners. But when you come out and say it, it's a real thing. O'Connell's got that same kind of mentality. This team is built to beat Green Bay. How do you beat Green Bay? Well, apparently, you go get two really good pass rushers on the edges, right?
One they already had. He just been injured for the last few years.
Danielle Hunter's been there. By the way, he's special.
He is.
You have players at all three levels, something we talked about. You play deep coverage. You have a speedy linebacker that can take away the middle, and you make Aaron either throw the check down or try to beat you on long developing routes, and thinking that you're going to get pressure in the pocket, you're going to get those guys to get home. And they just did a phenomenal job. And the one thing I always wonder about AG is like when you start out the season or a game and Christian Watson double moves Patrick Peterson, Hall of Fame player, and Aaron drops it in the breadbasket. and we drop the pass and it's an easy touchdown. We're back 7-7. I don't know if it doesn't look like this team could recover from that early miscue. And certainly I don't know if, he could and how everybody played if you watch this game, there's at least 2 quarters of them feeling sorry for themselves over that play. AG, I can't hear you, bud. Still no dice. Okay. We interrupt this regularly scheduled program to see if this is what happens. Guys, this is what happens when you're if you're watching on Twitter or on YouTube, this is what happens when you're a Packers fan after a loss. Everything goes completely haywire.
You hear me?
Yep, there we are, bud.
Yeah, when a button on the backside I had hit, didn't know I hit it.
No problem. Anyways, I just asked you about, taking that first drop on Christian Watson,
yes,
the season essentially. Let's just talk about it a little bit because we have the experience in this, right? Probably personally and also from a standpoint, what does that do for his confidence? What does that do for that entire team's confidence, knowing that we're missing guys? There's all these question marks around who we're going to distribute the ball to. There's all these question marks around our offensive line. What does that do to us?
Man, to see that play happen as a player, like I'm watching that play out, and as soon as I saw him drop the ball, it's man, here we go. Mm-hmm. And I saw the look on Aaron's face, and the first thing that popped in my head was that conversation in training camp. I'm pretty sure that is running right across his head now, and all those players' head, especially Christian Watson. It was easy play. He's made that catch probably 100 times in North Dakota State, wherever he played high school, and he showed his ability, what he can do against a defensive back, hitting a double move and then outrunning him. But now just finished the job. But from that standpoint, mentally, everybody basically got reminded, he's not Devontae from that right there. And that's where everybody's going to go. And unfortunately, you could see the mentality where these players are. It was like they were there. And I'm like, Devontae's one man. I said, I respect his game. If I was a teammate of his and him being gone, we miss him. But you know what? We got to work with the guys we got here. We got to give them all the support. We got to give them the confidence, too, to go make plays like he did. So moving forward, obviously, that's a learning lesson they can use for this game. Look at that mistake and be like, you know what? We got to fix it because we got 16 more games to go. If we don't figure it out, we got another team that just pulled it out. They figured it out a way in Chicago with the rain against a good 49ers team, and they coming up here with a win. So that means they're going to be ready to play. So that's the mindset that coaches, players in that building at 1265 have to have in their head. Because if not, this next game is going to be another tough game. And it's going to get rough and rougher throughout the year because everybody from week one, as we watch games, I know you watched a lot of games. I watched a lot of games. Everybody in this division competed. The Lions competed. The Bears competed. And obviously we saw the Vikings compete against the Packers and win. So this division now is put on notice and say, hey, we scrappy. We're going to fight. We might have to go back to being called the black and blue division again. So from that,
and I don't think we'd care about that. That'd be a great thing, right?
Right.
It's just we got to make sure we got to make sure we're part of the party there.
Exactly.
Because there's two things that and I went back, watched the end zone copy, and there's two things that are really disturbing about this game. I think the first is, Adam Sedemich is now the offensive coordinator, no longer the offensive line coach. Matt LaFleur is calling the plays, but there are some changes in leadership there, and you do see, especially with this game, with all the injuries, with everything that's happening, the situation we're in as far as being in Minnesota,
right? You
could tell Aaron Rodgers is on a play clock early. Like he's in an internal play clock real early. In other words, he's dropping back, and 1001 to 1002, he's going straight to the check down. He's got Watkins on a deep drag early in the game. Doesn't even wait for it, right? Just not even pressure, just pop, and goes out. We never question what Aaron does, and certainly he's got reads that I don't even understand. He knows football on a level that I don't. But from when you watch the tape, you could tell that he's on a quick play count, and then we see wide later on in the game, obviously.
Yeah.
But most important, AG, the Vikings punched us in the mouth, and we'll 100%. Talk about more in Trent's warfare. But how do when we talk about the Minnesota Vikings being able to play against the Green Bay Packers and keep up with Aaron Rodgers and being able to play safeties deep, being able to force kind of deeper routes in order to get home, or having to check it down early and creating some mismatches maybe along the defensive line. The one thing that has to happen in order for that to work is you have to tackle in the secondary.
You do.
And the Vikings guys threw their bodies around with reckless abandon yesterday, and that's why they were successful.
Yep. I was watching, another reminder. I was watching the Saints game from 21. It was slow out from the start offensively. They had a game plan, and they realized what you said. Get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson said it. You get punched in the mouth. All those plans you had before you got punched in the mouth change. It took them a while to make those adjustments. It wasn't until the third quarter where they finally got in the end zone. That's when the adjustments happened. So Minnesota came ready to play because they knew what they needed to do. They knew right away from the jump, we're going to win this game by beating you up physically, offensively, and defensively. Dalvin, we'll talk about him in a little bit here. But I'm gonna mention now, Dalvin Cook ran the ball hard, and then also our guys ran the ball hard. But it was just one of them things you nailed it right on the head. Is Minnesota threw the first punch and threw often. So if it was a pinch count, Minnesota won that punch count count throughout the match here.
The only guys that showed up, I mean, if you're asking me, the only guys that showed up this game were our two running backs on offense. On offense.
Exactly.
If we're gonna have players of the week, you pick. You want AJ or Aaron? They showed, those two showed up. I don't know about everybody else. What did you see in those guys?
Like in those guys, I saw. You know what? I'm gonna do what I have to do to get the ball up the field, make my team, help my team in every possible way, because running the ball was very difficult. The Darius, Hunter, all the guys we mentioned the week before, they were making it hard on them. Hendricks in the gaps where they needed to be, but they still found little spaces here and there. For some of the formations that LaFleur does a good job is doing, getting Aaron Jones out in space from the routes, from the alignment of that, get him long handoffs. He got those. He was able to get 5 to 10, sometimes 15 yards out of that, but it wasn't easy. Hunter Smith coming down in the box, making great plays, great tackles, but then still AJ Dillon doing things that we hadn't seen him do a whole lot of, catching the ball out of the backfield and squaring guys off and running through tackles. Hey, he had a couple runs where 10 yards, 15 yards right up the middle, where he's hit literally every defender he hit or they hit him. And he's like, you know what? He dropped the ball, went right back to it, because he knew you could see the face. Like I saw his face. They span to the sideline. They do the shot of everybody's face on both teams. And when they were walking that camera down the Packers sideline, they tuned in on AJ and Aaron Jones. They're sitting next to each other, and they're just looking at each other like, all right, that look of we got to do what we got to do right now. It's not much going on. Yeah, the sledding, we can't run much, but let's just run what the lineman is going to give us and what that D line is going to allow us. And then after that, just be the players who we are. And that's what they showed up. So I'm very satisfied with what I saw between AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones at the running back position.
Well, listen, we had, a good rushing average, but the problem is it's just inefficient. We played in these games before where you go. So I remember we played in St. Louis.
St. Louis, we had a tough run. Yep.
And we're getting the break speed off us all game. And then like the last series of the fourth quarter, Najee rips off 97 stutter for like 70 yards. So all of a sudden our rushing average goes up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we have over 100 yards. Everything looks good. This was inefficient. And but these guys ran extremely hard. They were involved in they had to be involved in the passing game. A.J. Dillon kind of showed a new side of him, like you said. I think
he did.
Leading receiver, nice. Which is not a good thing at all. It's not a good thing. But you just love, like we've been saying it for the last year. These guys are bell cows, both of them, and the fact that we have two of them, we're lucky. We just got to find a way to help them out.
Yeah. So let's get back to the top of this. So sometimes you can't recover from the miscue. So what does that do to not, I say not only like somebody like Aaron's confidence, but the team's confidence around that locker room?
Well, I think we talked about this earlier, right? When you have an opportunity to kind of break out, get back to even, first play of the season, those kind of things, it's almost like, is this an omen for bad things? And I think individually you have to have the confidence in yourself, knowing that, one thing that always happened when we were playing, when you're an offensive lineman, you have a bad play, there's this thing in your mind that creeps in to say, hey man, it's a rule of three. Bad things come in threes. And so what you're trying to do is always like, man, I got to get past the next. If I can just get past the next play, then I'm going to be all right. But if that next play goes bad, then it's like you're almost guaranteed the next one is, because mentally you just can't overcome that rule of three, right? It's just really, really hard. So I think from an individual standpoint, you got to be able to turn the page. I know they didn't come right back to Christian Washington, but they ended up giving him the end around. Then he caught a pass later on. So he got a little bit involved in the offense, not as much as we hope to see later on as the season progresses. But I think offensively, everything that you're reading, everything that you're hearing, everything that you're seeing with your own eyes in practice, missing Lazard, missing Bakhtiari, missing Jenkins, right? Not having Devontae Adams there anymore, not having these options, not being really from a timing standpoint, not being really where you want to be. All that stuff shows up, and all of a sudden you have a letdown like that. Man, it's really hard to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and like, hey, man, we got to keep going. Let's turn the page. We'll see what they do against the Bears as far as offensively. But, defensively, listen, this is the problem, AG. Like, we thought this was a top 5, top 3 defense. Justin Jefferson is on every TV show right now. I can turn on being the player of the week.
Right.
Are you kidding? Miscommunication, misreads from the first play. The first play. Alexander says he wants to follow. He's asking to follow him all over the yard. The first play, he starts chasing Jefferson instead of taking the tight end in the flat. We get a first down, 13-yard gain or 12-yard gain.
Right.
Miscommunication on the first touchdown. He goes across
he's
formation.
Trying to pass it over. He's looking for help.
We don't pass it off. It's like, how can you? I don't understand at this level of defense with this quality of players how we messed that up.
Yeah, I said overall defense between they were getting back there. They were causing some little problems, but nothing where it was like Minnesota's offense was worried. You could tell that they expected that type of rush to come from Kenny Clark or from the ends with Preston Smith maybe going out and covers a little bit. But overall, Kevin O'Donnell, he had that offense prepared, and the defense coordinator definitely prepared for what they were expecting the Packers to come out to. So the Vikings tested every level of our defense, the D-line, the O-line, the defensive backfield from the play action and the formations to get Justin Jefferson in those situations where it was going to cause problems to Zaire or any DB back there. To try to bounce it from zone to zone, or if it's man, you got to stay on it. Keep running, because it's like I remember seeing that one play, I think it was the second one where he had the big crosser for the touchdown, where Zaire is like looking. When he did this with his head, I'm like, oh man, he's lost because he's looking for help. When I saw him do this, I was like, man, that's a problem, because you should be.
He didn't chase him.
Right, he didn't chase. He stopped. He let him go, and he tried to take the tight end.
Everybody else is playing man. Yep. And he stopped, and he took this, and they thought they were going to switch. It's like this. I mean, like defensive backs, it's all about communication, right? It's all about 100%. Communication. And so when you're seeing these kind of errors, not once, not twice, but multiple times in the game, man, it kind of makes you wonder. Like, at least for me, AG, and give me your thoughts on this. Like, do we need to have a preseason game so we can at least communicate? Like, I'm a big fan of, I get the joint practices and we talk, but then you see something like this and you're like, defensively, we're making mistakes. Like, offensively, I kind of get it from a timing standpoint, but this level of miscommunication on defense.
You read my mind. I was thinking about this, but when I saw you editing about an hour ago, and I was like going over my head, I said, beyond the miscues, I say miscues like this is because no preseason time. Like, they're not between practices. Practice is practice. They can only contact so much physically from 5 days to 10 days to whatever. But then when the games come up, I say for this team, I'll speak for the Packers. For the Packers practice or preseason games, they're not maximizing their time. What's the old rule? What did we do? We did first game, first series. We're in there for the whole series. If we score a touchdown or not, boom, we're off. Second game, we'll play the whole first half. That means the first quarter, second quarter, whatever we do, score, touchdown, punt, we're playing the whole first half no matter what. Third preseason game, we're playing the first half and then half of the third quarter, and then we're done. And then fourth preseason is all the free agent players on the bubble. Okay, maximize time. Now you only have 3 preseason games. What you do, just scale it back. First preseason games, first series. Second preseason game, first half. Third preseason game, let the young bucks have it. But you got to maximize that time now, because this is now year 2 that I've seen this out of preseason. We both seen it, where this team doesn't come out hitting on all cylinders. So just a little note. I hope Matt LaFleur and that coaching staff takes to say, all right, maybe we need to tweak some things in training camp to get to this part, because right now, coming off the week 1 kickoff game with a bad taste in my mouth, it does help the rest of the season still go from there, because now we got the Bears coming to town. This is an easy game to get up for. And now we already getting punched in the mouth. We don't want to get punched in the mouth again. So this week should be easy to prepare for and scheme and all that stuff. But mentally be like, you know what? We just got into a fight. We lost. Let's win this fight from the jump when these Bears get here in Lambeau on Sunday.
Yeah, well said. Let's just get right into trench warfare, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, listen, I think bottom line, when I talk about, let's just start with the defense, which we rarely do, but because we're on topic anyways.
Right.
When I look at in the interior, the offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings, I was surprised. And listen, Kenny Clark beat the center a couple times. Like, we got some clean hits on Cousins. Cousins got rid of the ball.
Yeah.
But they did a pretty good job because they won their double teams. And I know that sounds like super easy. Like, okay, of course you should win your double teams. We didn't really win our double teams on our offensive line. The Minnesota offensive line won their double teams. They helped on guys they needed to help on. They went out of their way to make sure Rashawn Gary had a guy chip him every time, or to send the guard out. They went out of their way to make sure the backside guard would come over and help the center on the other side to help against Kenny. Okay.
Yeah.
We just couldn't quite get home in time, even though a lot of these routes were a little bit deeper. It just couldn't quite get there. Mm-hmm. And the thing that was disturbing, we've talking about from an intensity standpoint, I know Coach LaFleur at halftime made some kind of statement about we're just not playing hard enough, or they're playing with more intensity than we are. But you don't really see Kenny Clark show up in the run game like you think you're going to. I know that Minnesota fans are like afraid of Kenny Clark in the run game. The way that
I think a lot of players are.
The Minnesota interior offensive line is usually pretty
right.
You don't really hear his name. He's not popping up a lot on tape. He did beat the guy clean for a couple times in the passing game, and Cousins got rid of the ball. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say that it was like a wasted effort, but it just wasn't what we're used to seeing. And like for me, AG, they're playing a rookie right guard who couldn't block very well.
No, I saw that.
Yeah,
at times, and he got the help he needed though. That's what they adjusted to.
But okay, so I would just ask this, right? We talked about this last week. If you've got a guy playing right guard who we want to test, that was like the only place you should put Wyatt. Kenny Clark should line up there as often as possible.
100%.
And then the other thing is, like, you see how they're using Z against us.
Oh my God!
And what happens the first time Rashawn Gary goes down? What happens? He beats the right guard. We get a sack. One sack for the game. We don't really see him in there that much after that. Like, why doesn't he get 15, 20 snaps? I just, that kind of stuff schematically didn't make a lot of sense to me this game. Yeah. I didn't like our pass rush plan, I guess is the easiest way to put that.
Yeah, they probably got to the point where they were reeling and not paying attention to those little details. Like saying that, oh, it's a problem when we move Rashard here, or if we put Kenny, like, I'm 100%. I got a rookie tackle, or like you said, rookie guard tackle. Yeah, my best guy is going right there at least 5 times in the first series. Right. And then moving up from there to see what happens, because then if I get him in that kid's head, then it's a problem, because we know defensive line, offensive line, how things work. It's physical first, and then eventually mentally comes in, because guys start chapping, and then, or you get beat, you get punched in the mouth. Then you're like, okay, I got him. Now I could do this with him. All even line. That's what you thought too when you played. I know you do a block move and boom, you did it. Then you're like, okay, I'm in this guy's head. Now I could work this. Go from there. Same with me in the run game. When I get the ball, that first 2 plays, in one of those 2 plays, I'm gonna just hit somebody as hard as I can. I don't care what I got in front of me, if it's a first down or a touchdown, but I'm gonna send a message. This is the message I'm sending. You got to deal with this for 4 quarters. But then now, once I see that I'm in their head, now I could drop my shoulder again, or I could juke them. I could stiff for him. I could play with him, because he's making business decisions now. He said, man, I don't want to deal with this guy for 4 quarters. He's going to hit me in my face every time like that. Yeah, that's the problem. And so players got to understand they got to use their ability to that level. Then you get that. Then you could do your game. Offensively, Gary could defensively do his thing there. So they just got to get to that mindset.
I always wonder if they, we talk about pass rush plans and what maybe the coordinator, the D-line coach has lined up for these guys. And I just, it was a little confusing for me because, first of all, Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle, he played, he got beat a couple times. He played really well. And I know he's
Minnesota.
For Minnesota. And he's a first-round pick, and he probably should. I know O'Neal I thought O'Neal
played real good.
I thought that Gary would beat O'Neal all day, every day. And the way that we're rushing, we're not challenging the edge. We talked about this last year a little bit. Like, there's a certain way to really make people feel uncomfortable. And especially when you have guys who are sitting that 45-degree angle, things are happening pretty fast. So you really have to be able to take edges and challenge leverage. And we ran into these guys so often and tried to work hands off after running into them.
And that's hard.
Footwork and body position win the matchup, right? Hands can save the matchup, but footwork and body position win the matchup. That's like football 101. And we just kept running into these guys. The times that we did take edges, we had success. But gosh, man, it just didn't happen enough yesterday. And the other thing I'll say is, you watch the Minnesota defensive line, you watch some of the lines across the NFL, and what they'll do a really nice job of, like, bringing guys off the edge and then taking the defensive end, letting him spike across the tight end, letting him spike across the tackle, spiking the 3 technique. And what we do a little more often is we'll have our defensive ends who I think are, if not our best players, along with Kenny, our best, some of our best guys.
Preston and Rashard.
Yeah, but they're always playing contain against tight ends, and so they're playing that contained position where they can't rip underneath and go make a play, and then they'll insert the safety or insert the linebacker into the B gap. Where for me, sometimes because of the quality of talent that you have at both those positions, it's like, why are we not having them take the inside on those tight ends every once in a while, spike against the tackles, and use their athleticism to create more havoc? It just seemed almost a little bit vanilla yesterday as far as how we're going to attack.
Yeah, it's like, because I remember a coach saying, I can't remember which coach it was definitely at the college level, but I remember coaches saying what you just explained: give our players the best plays where they look, give them the plays where they look good, where they're going to maximize their talent. That's where we want to put them. It might have been Charlie McBride, that was a defensive coordinator at Nebraska when I was there, who was a great defensive guy. And he would say that. I could hear him yelling at Coach Osborne, and that's what you just mentioned. I mean, to have Kenny, to have Preston and Gary only in good positions once a half, you just got to restructure that game plan just to make sure, because you want to obviously not be in this situation again, 1. And then 2, you got some tough games coming up, starting with this one with Chicago. So put your players in the best place so they can win. And that's offensively and defensively. So we saw that. And so we saw one guy here is the defensive player of the game. What you got here, Mike?
Yeah. Mean Dean Lowry, man. Lowry showed up. And I know from a stats standpoint, I think he had 3 tackles total, 2 solo, but he was winning his matchup. He was in the backfield. He was bull rushing. He was creating pressure. He was taking on double teams. He just did his job extremely well. And we know, he's kind of a lunch pail guy, and we love him. But there's one thing that I wanted to go back to, because Minnesota, again, we talked about getting punched in the mouth and the way their DBs were making plays. On a couple of the bubble screens, on things where you kind of have to fire your gun, like wide receiver screens and whatnot, our guys hesitated yesterday.
Yeah, and that makes it, not getting his head around.
That makes a difference, right? It makes a difference on the edge from a wide receiver standpoint. It makes a difference on the edge from a DB standpoint. Sometimes you got to go out there, throw your body in there, and fire your gun, and that's something that's got to come from within. But it's also got to be pressured on by that entire unit. Again, that was kind of the disappointing part about our team yesterday.
Yeah, just that what we call a sense of urgency wasn't quite there for guys on the field. It went to the sidelines, and it basically was coming back and forth between offense and defense. And it just started, like we mentioned, it started with that first big play that was a mishap of Christian Watson dropping the ball. That's where it started, and then from there, it was just a domino effect. So now let's get to the offensive side of the ball here. You have here talking about Z and Daniil.
So
Hunter.
Listen, it's funny. Zadarius Smith, I remember when he came in, to Green Bay, and I remember talking to some of the guys in the building that you and I both know well, saying that this guy completely is changing the culture of the locker room and the way that he approaches everything. He kind of had that Baltimore Ravens attitude, bringing that to Green Bay, and just making guys believe in themselves, making guys just enjoying the competition, enjoying just being ferocious. And this week, he made a big deal about he felt he wasn't treated well when he got hurt and all these things. And he went to Minnesota to play Green Bay twice, and he was going to have an impact. And we talked about it. Like, we knew he was going to have an impact. I didn't think that it was going to make a difference because I thought we were a better team.
Correct.
But one thing that he's done, apparently, at least for one game, is he has transposed his culture, the way he thinks about football, onto that Minnesota Vikings team. Because that's when we talk about playing hard, all that's Z. He came in and he made a huge difference. Danielle Hunter, I mean, when we're having Bakhtiari and Jenkins versus these two discussions,
it's a different game. Yeah,
that's one thing. When we're having Yash and Royce, that's a completely different thing. Danielle Hunter, listen, man, there's some plays that he didn't get a sack on.
Right.
I saw moves I hadn't seen before. that dude's got some moves on. Yeah, he's legit.
Right, and to Z's point, to your point about Za'Darius, is the fact that was year one when he got to Green Bay. He came in there and he just infected everybody with the leadership, with the effort in practice, an effort in games. We saw him off the ball. Even that 2 plays at the end of last season that he came in and played when from the back or 2 years ago, where he only had a 2 series, and in the 2 series he caused disruption and he got a sack. So that right there just showed me he's about that life. He's about football life during the football season. And he even showed up to a point, it was a play in there where I think it was a reverse and Aaron went to block him. He didn't win the block. He didn't win the block, but the interaction between them, they got in each other's face. It was more of like a friendship level thing. That just showed me that Za'Darius is about teamwork, because even though they're not teammates no more, they just shared that moment. But you know what? I'm in a purple jersey now. You're in white jersey. I had to hit you. You okay? I'm okay. Ha ha ha. But you know what? Let's get back to the snap. So that just shows where his mindset is. To then go to another team in the division and you know what? I'm gonna beat him up twice a year, and he's gonna do that. So I think that right there should be a clear message of what 55 is gonna do when they come back to Lambeau here later in the season and for those guys to be ready for it. I say if you can't read that message no clearer, then you just don't have your awareness. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
It's a void. Apparently,
yes, it's
a void in our locker room, right? And that's kind of the point that it was eye-opening for me, was like, oh my God, does he take that with him? Like, is it try? He's put it back in his black leather bag, and like he takes that with him. And like, do we not get it anymore? Like, what happened?
Yeah, that's some things. Yeah, and you're right. It might be one of those things. Some things you can't duplicate, you can't replace, but you got to find it some way. And the Packers got to do that. They got to find it some way through a person or just through a team effort somewhere.
Let's talk about this offensive line, because listen, we know that we're missing our 2 best guys. Josh has played at a high level. I don't think either of us feel great about Royce at right tackle, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Just miscues and missed timing to start the game. You can tell they haven't been playing.
Yeah. And now JRJ might be out. We don't know. We'll see.
Well, listen, JRJ, and he's a friend of the program, and I'm a big fan of his.
Me too.
He got absolutely lit up a couple times yesterday, and if it's a concussion, then I can tell you what play it was, because he got.
Was it the one where Aaron got sandwiched, or was it before or after that?
It looked there was a play that he was coming off, and I think Hicks hit him, and he went in the air backwards, and it was as clean a linebacker hitting a guard that I've seen in a long time.
Okay.
But again, it just points to kind of the ferocity of the Minnesota defense.
Like,
but
they coming downhill. Right.
Yeah, he's I think JRJ started the game tripping on Rodgers on an outside zone play. We have tight ends. We're playing people because of the situation, because Lazard's hurt. We're playing people who aren't avid blockers, aside from Mercedes Lewis. I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm glad Runyon's back, but they put Runyon in to, take a little bit of pressure off of Royce with Danielle Hunter. And he's literally playing 2-hand tag and just trying to get onto his route as fast as he can. And then Danielle Hunter's just essentially getting in the same free rush on the tackle. And you're going, you're going, dude, like we know you're not a blocker, but come on, like do something. Act like you really want to help the team win the game. You know, aside from receiving, like it's like the dirty part of the business is a part of a lot of people have, you know, we have the most respect for.
100%. You know, it's just about those coaches holding those players accountable, and players too amongst themselves, because seeing Runyon in there was great, but then when he's going to run his route, but yeah, you got to chip, you got to secure before you go. You got to put two hands on the guy and push and keep that guy on top of that tackle, and not just give a love tap and then get out to your route. You got to actually reset him, so then he's all color is covered up by that tackle or guard or the tackle that usually he's near. So I know exactly the technique of help you're talking about.
You and I both said running, and everybody knows we mean Tunyon, but you talk Tyre Davis is in the game. Yeah. DeWar is a willing guy. We just got to keep working.
He's got to get more experience. Yep.
Yeah, but these guys are not up to standard to participate in a game that's going to be that physical. And so where did we get that blocking last year? Lazard.
Yep.
Who's now the number one guy, probably doesn't have that role, but
no more. All right.
We better find that guy, you know. And I'll just say this on the inside, like we talk about Za'Darius, we talk about Danielle Hunter. I didn't think the inside guys would give us much trouble. And I'll just tell you right now, this guy, 94 is I don't want to screw his name up because I did last time. Dalvin Tomlinson from New York.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely killed us. I mean, he killed us in the run game. He pushed the pocket in the pass. I really didn't think he was that kind of guy. You know, when you watch tape, you're going, okay, he's a good player. He's nothing. This guy killed us. Whenever we double teamed, he could go right to turn it into a single block and throw the guy off. When we single blocked the guy, he created an angle and he could throw the guy off. When we pass rush and they got too close, he'd do a simple move. And he doesn't look like he should be able to pass rush when you give his body dimensions, the way he kind of gets around. But he was effective all game. He did a really, really good job. And maybe, you know, one of the kind of disappointing things is if you're a good offensive line, when they're running twist games, you should actually be happy. Because basically when you run a twist game, you all of a sudden aren't really doing a move. It's like you're going straight and then you're looping, or you're running, you're penetrator, you're a looper, but all your best stuff, your chop club rips, your swipes, your double wipes, all those things are kind of off the table because you got to run this predetermined route. But we're not stopping the penetrator at all as a tackle. They're not slamming back. So Danielle Hunter multiple times running free on tight end, TE games. And it's just like, it was just frustrating, right? Because we know it's a hard place to play, and I'm not
from sound and everything.
Sound, the sound and all that stuff is difficult, but you just want to see a little bit more intensity out of that group.
Yeah, and intensity, good or bad, spreads, and that's what we saw throughout the game. And just come that third quarter, they finally got a little jump out of there, got the ball in the end zone, but that was pretty much it. Everything was tough from that standpoint on. Offensively for the Packers and defensively too. But I say, if anything, like I mentioned earlier, learning lesson, look at the mistakes and then get those things corrected up real fast. That's what they got to do here. So we got, where are we at here? Too many key guys hurt in that type of environment. And when you write that down, where are you going with that one?
Well, I think it's clear, right? We talked about it at the beginning. Like, this is a results-driven business, but it is difficult. It was very interesting to see ultimately, if you look at this game, everybody's going to play injured, during the course of the season. This is maybe our time right now, but you're missing your two tackles. Maybe the biggest problem right now that we have, honestly, is that Bakhtiari, at this point, if he's not back, like if he's really not back after week one. And I think they said something last week, like, we're not going to rush this thing. It feels like it's been 2 years. I know it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been 2 years now. And so you start going like, well, shoot, man.
Right.
I hope he's okay.
Right.
But I hope he can play for this team. And if not, like, we need to go find a solution. We need to find it now, because the team that we're putting out there right now, given all the other inconsistencies that we have and lack of, I guess, experience at the receiver position in this offense, we're going to have to manufacture more yards, more everything with the running game with AJ and Aaron. And gosh, like this is one of the few times since I think Aaron was much younger that I was like, he's looking out there, and he just you can't find somebody open. And when you watch the all 22 and you watch the end zone copy, you can't find a lot of people open in the offense yesterday, and that's tough.
Yeah, and I saw that it was definitely a couple dropbacks when I could see myself. I said, "There's nobody open," and he's moving his feet. He's extending the pocket. He's not pushing up because pushing up was a sack, so he had to go left or right. He couldn't go up the middle and climb in the pocket. So yeah, and that is just as a watcher, knowing what he's doing, and then I know his feeling as a quarterback is like, oh my God, this is a problem. And so some of the looks he's given, to the receivers, to to himself or whoever he was looking at off on where the camera was catching his facial expressions, it just shows you what has to be done here in the next week. It has to be fast. So receivers got to get open. Guys got to understand no matter who's out there blocking, get your blocks and then communicate among the blockers on the offensive line, and the same and then on defense too. Communicate in the defensive back end. You can't be a veteran or Pro Bowl DB and not be communicating or not hearing that from other DBs in the backfield if you're running zones or even different games to cover and lock down a number one or a number two receiver that's just running feed. That's what we saw with Justin Jefferson. You can't have a guy like that. Like, man, I'm not being touched. Oh, okay. I'm gonna just run here and wait for the ball. Just stuff like that. You just gotta make sure. Now, this was a learning lesson. We got shellacked. Let's go. You got to wake up, because another wake up. We don't wake up by the end of September. We could be looking at 1-4, 1-3, and that's not a good place coming out of this division, since everybody, like I said from the start, from Detroit to the Bears and obviously the Vikings, all got better in terms of mental side and now are executing at a higher level from week one. Obviously, it's just week one, just one game before everything else gets going here. So
yeah, sometimes this stuff goes poorly. Listen, guys, like our secondary is going to get improved. We know everybody's going to play better.
Yep.
7:20 next weekend versus the Bears Sunday night. I'm sure these guys will be ready. I'm sure these guys will be ready to go. So bad way to start the week.
Very bad way to
start the week.
Yep. So I guess you want to head over. We want to get it. We done here.
Yeah, let's get off my line. Let's just talk about the obvious elephant in the room, man.
Yes.
Scott Frost out as Nebraska Cornhuskers head coach. Interesting point. I think if they waited till October 1st, they could have saved $7.5 million. They're going to give him a full payout of $15 million, which is a consolation. Like to Ed Ogeron, that was all the consolation he needed. But I think Scott is a diehard. He was the guy supposed to save that resurrect that the community there, and it really is a shame, man. He's a good dude. I don't, who knows what happened. I'm sure you have a better insight to talk about this than I do, but I feel for him,
Yeah, I know it was a lot going on and off the field, from people that I know, being from the state, from my hometown, Omaha, then Lincoln, where I went to school down there with him at. It was on the field, off the field. And I say more of the on the field stuff with the players in the locker room, where he kind of lost them. The players weren't buying in to whatever the coaches were selling. And it's you look at NIL, you look at transfer portal on top of just trying to be a college football coach or a college high D1 coach anyway. So you just add those with stuff that we didn't have when we were in college. We didn't have NIL deals. We didn't have transfer portal. If a guy transfers out of a program during our time, they transfer and then they had to wait a year. And so that's a year off of their time in school. They could probably go to school, but they couldn't participate on the field or the basketball court or the baseball diamond. Now kids can transfer and play instantly that same year. They could transfer in the spring, and by that fall, there could be starter at whatever position. So you not only is he fighting against that, but then also the regular stuff that you got to do, dealing with a program that has had the A-bomb several times in terms of coaching staffs being taken out and replaced by the next coaching staff, saying this coach staff will do it. This one will get us back.
Is it the same athletic director every time or president?
No, it's different. So Trev is now since my time, the third athletic director. So since 1997, we've had 3 athletic directors.
When's the last time you would say they were good?
Probably right before and during the time of between 2000 to 2002. That was the really good years because Frank Stolins was the coach at that time. So he was a previous coach under Coach Osborne, as we've seen in the past in college and pro, when somebody's within the program that is now the head coach, the program continues as is. There's not much drop off. We went
for a couple of years.
Right, for a couple of years. Yep. Coach Solich, his year one was 12-2. Mm-hmm. I think next year was 12-3, and they beat Michigan in the Alamo Bowl.
So they're relevant. But they haven't been relevant. I mean, Nebraska was the team, right? It was 100%. Nebraska and Miami forever. And now they haven't been relevant in 20 years.
We haven't, no.
For no real reason.
And I say the reason that I know what I see, and it's just like but it's what you and me know about sports culture. Yeah. What is that culture in the building? And what is the culture that those coaches are building for players that are on campus and the players are coming to campus? When I was recruited, I came to that school on my visit. It was only a 50-mile drive, but I knew right away the best players are going to play, regardless of their upperclassmen or lowerclassmen. They're going to play. The best player, literally, that's what Coach Alvarez said. The best players are going to play. I don't care where you are, if you're young or not. But if you understand what you need to do on this team, offensively, defensively, and special team-wise, you're going to play. And then players, like on some of our teams in Green Bay, we held each other accountable. When we had a bad practice, I didn't have to have a coach tell me what was going on. I had Lawrence Phillips saying, hey, man, what's wrong? You got a problem? Or I had Christian Peterman come up to me, hey, bro, you don't run the ball like that. This is how Nebraska – and this is the defensive lineman telling me how to run the ball as a freshman. So you know what I said? Yeah, okay. I feel you. I respect that. Thank you. I needed that information. You run the ball harder, AG. You need to come harder. We don't running backs don't run like that. This is Christian Peter telling me this. And so that right there, that told me this is the place for me.
I wonder if seriously.
So that's missing. That is missing there now. Players like that are missing from the program and why we're not where we're at, where we should be.
Let me ask you this,
since my time.
Let me ask you this, AG, because in the pros, I don't think you could say that to a guy. I don't think a defensive lineman is going to come up to a running back in the pros and have that conversation necessarily.
100%.
Because it's all about, it's dollars and branding and blah, blah, blah.
It's egos, all that.
You used to think that in college you had that kind of relationship. It was a brotherhood. It was family, a little bit more so because there wasn't money involved. I wonder now, because of NIL and because of this transfer portal, I really wonder, and you know this, but you're more involved in the college scene than I am. Do you think it's possible to resurrect that kind of culture at a program like Nebraska, given all the restrictions you just talked about?
Yes, it's definitely a chance. In my book, it's always a chance. And the reason why I say that for this program is the fact that every coach that's come in there, even Scott, for a time, he had the players buy in. Why? Because he was a former player. He won a national title. He had the respect of what the players knew, because those players' parents were us. They were same age as us. They remember, oh, Scott and Mom were in the backfield, or Scott did this, and Matt Davison did that. So people recognize it, and then they'll say they tap on their kid's shoulder, hey, that was the quarterback of the national title team back in 1997. He led them along with these other players on defense and offense. So yeah, and you saw what he did at Central Florida. So he's going to bring that same mentality here. So that was the first year, but then that kind of dissipated with things on the offense.
So that happens. That happens with you fire a guy, and then whoever comes in, they win their first game or their first two games, right? There's this kind of blip, and then it's kind of return to the mean.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you turn those good feelings, that hope, that outlook into something sustainable, right? And at some point, this is like, we talk about this all the time with coaching staffs. At some point you have to offer these players something that they A, don't have right now, and B, desperately want, even though they might not know it at the moment, right? True. You have to be able to give them, and that could be different things for different people. It could be a mentor. It could be technical mastery. It could be a better understanding of the game. It could be opportunity, but you have to know how to deliver that message. And I think that's the hardest thing about all of these programs now.
Yep.
All these things about these programs, right? It's like you have to make so many promises, just empty promises, to so many people in order to get to the point where you can have influence. And then once you have influence, you're like, God, I stretched myself a little thin.
Right. And what I've done, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because this is that type of society of recruiting now for college coaches that they have to almost bow down to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this because this is how I've done it. Even though I'm not at a big D1 school, and then I'm not coaching traditional sports. I'm coaching esports. I took a philosophy that Coach Osborne used, and what I noticed as a kid when he was recruiting me, and then every player that I helped host and recruit they end up coming to Nebraska. Every guy that I recruited came to Nebraska. Why? Because I told them what Coach Osborne told me. If Amon plays, or if he practices well, if he studies the playbook, he will have an opportunity to play ball here. That means he has to hit the weight room. He has to hit the book, stay out of trouble. He will play. There is nothing simpler than that. And that's what I've told players that I've coached in high school, that I've now coached in this esports team. I said, look, I've coached kids from Florida and said, hey, man, you want to come here and play Call of Duty? I'm just letting you know you're going to need a triple down, double coat. It's cold as hell here. I'm just telling them what's up. I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing. I'm not going to tell them some fantasy story that's not going to happen. Be real with the kids from the start. Hey, you're going to come. And I remember having a conversation for year one when Scott got hired. I said, Scott, hey, let me come down. Can I come down to spring ball practice? He said, yeah, come on down. We can hang out. We can talk. You can talk to the players, whatever. I got to the players. We worked out in the weight room. And after the workout, I said, look, straight up, whoever's juniors and seniors right now, y'all about to get thumped in the mouth right now. You're getting into the Big Ten. Or you now got a new coaching staff and you've been here for 3 years. And now you got a new guy that you got to impress. So just know y'all the foundation, though. Y'all getting y'all butt kicked is what we need to get to the top level, because we need that. You learn from losing. You learn from getting punched in the mouth. You learn from having a bad play, missing a block, throwing an interception, fumbling the ball. You learn. Do we hate when it happens? Yes. We don't want to feel that feeling, but those feelings, flip them around. Have that fear of that mistake push you from behind instead of stop you, get in front of you. Do that. And so if you keep it real with these kids, then you'll see the ones that's going to bow out. You know what? We didn't, you know what? Not to say a mean way to say it, we didn't need you, but at least I see now where you stand. Then you ain't about that life, then okay, move on. Go to the next school. Go to that school that's already got all the bells and whistles. We are a program that's struggling, but we're trying to make it right. And right now, it's going to be a lot of, like we said earlier, it's going to be a lot of crow eating going on before we start to get that steak dinner or that crab leg dinner again. Just know that. If you keep it real with these kids, then you'll find the ones that are about that life. Then you'll find the ones that are not, pretty much.
Well said, man. It sounds like the next head coach. I'll tell you that much. Listen, let's skip to the bottom of Get Off My Lawn, because the only other thing I wanted to bring up was Motley Crue is touring again.
Uh-oh.
And I need to get on this, but they're getting a little bit in trouble. Now, remember, Motley Crue is older than we are, right?
So 80 bands, they used to go hard in the paint.
Yeah,
I know.
Yes, these guys, like, listen, I don't know if you've read the book, The Bible.
No, I haven't, but I've heard of stuff.
Yeah, and they made a movie about these. I mean, these guys are legendary.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they're 50-some years old. They're going to these. I have to imagine that like you and me are going to these concerts, not like 20-year-old people are going to these concerts.
Right.
And then they're asking everybody to show everything, men and women, during these concerts, and they're getting in trouble because, like, I'm assuming all these 50-year-olds are, pulling up the hood, pulling down the trousers, doing the whole thing. It's like, and I know it's crude. It's not funny, but damn it, it's pretty funny, man. Because like, if you imagine going to a show and like all these, middle-aged people are just acting wild. I mean, it's just, I just love it, dude. I love those guys.
I went to a concert when I was probably 12 with my mom. It was the Neville Brothers, a jazz band that was out in Louisiana. My dad actually grew up with some of the singers, and my dad got sick. So my mom was like, I'm going to bring you with me to the concert. And I said, okay, I'm going to support my mom, and my dad's sick. He couldn't go to the concert. We get there, and like you just said, thank God my mom didn't go pulling up stuff. But I saw her. She's in here doing her thing in the row, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't know what to do or say. I'm like, I'm seeing everybody like dancing this up but me. So I know that feeling right there is Mike.
I went to the shows when I was younger, and so now I'm like, well, And I remember how everybody behaved.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, but 50-year-olds can't behave that way, can they? I was like, oh, man.
Oh, yes, they can.
Oh, they can. But you want to hit this hero of the week, man? Because this guy had a day.
Oh, yes, for sure, for sure. My man Saquon coming back from the knee injury and getting a big win. To get that ball in the end zone like he did is just like, yes. Because I like this kid from the time I saw him at Penn State.
Right.
I'm like, man, he's the full package. He could catch the ball. He could run. He could take it to the house. And between the tackles, he's a problem. He's going to move people. And so when he got hurt, I was like, darn. Because that, for me, was probably kind of the head of the spear for the Giants organization trying to get back on track. Bringing in Daniel Jones, him having support with him, running with Saquon running the ball, but then also the receivers they had when they had Odell, but then Shepard as well, who's also a pretty good receiver. That is, I believe they're number one now. Also has some big plays in that game too. So,
and unlike us, what we were talking about, blocks, inserts himself out on the
he's a little dude too,
and throws his body around. And all you need, it's like one of those things. Like all you need is enthusiasm, man. How are we going to get through this, guys? Some goddamn enthusiasm.
That's it.
I don't care how big you are. I don't care if you throw your body around. It might not look great, but you're going to get a running back an extra 3 yards, and that's all we care about. Throw your body around. Hey, Saquon, it was 18 carries for 164 yards and a touchdown. That's a good. Hey, that's even good for you. You know what I mean?
That's a great day. Yes, it is.
You have a day. You have a couple of days like that, man. People start talking.
We've had days like that. Yes, we've had those days. Those are good days. Win or lose, those are good days. We did our job. Even better to win, though. Even better, like they did. They pulled it out for Dabo, or it's not Dabo.
Brian Dable, you're right.
Dable, I was close.
Yep.
I was close.
Yeah, Brian. Listen, Tennessee blew it. They're 2 feet away from losing that game. Tennessee blew it. Tannehill led them down the field. Very makeable field goal. Honestly, they blew it. But good win for the program. And this is one of those things. Let me ask you this: he goes for 2. It's 19-20. He goes for 2, and I guess he went around and said, "Hey, we're gonna score a touchdown here." And he asked the defensive leaders. He asked some guys that've been on the field from offense, "Hey, are you guys good with me going for 2? Because if they don't make it, they're going to lose the game."
I like that.
And he goes and kind of just make sure that everyone's on the same page. I don't know that it matters or what, but you kind of like it, don't you?
100%. Yeah. Because that's showing that he has respect for you as a player and a coach. To say you're on my level. Mm-hmm. I don't know everything. My gut's telling me, but I thought I need to ask you too.
Well, it's like
just to bring you in this conversation. I like
the Tennessee Titans got held to 20 points by the Giants defense, who wasn't. I mean, they're probably
they're not on the map right now.
That's right. So I think it's like you said, it's the level of respect that he's showing. Like, hey, you guys fought and deserve to win this game. We can go to overtime, but I want to try to win it right now. I know you only gave up 20 this game. You deserve to win. Are you good with me taking this chance? Exactly. And I think that's awesome. I do think that's awesome.
And saying that right there, I'll be like, go ahead, let's do it. We ride together, we die together. Ride
can you imagine
boys for life, baby?
Could you imagine somebody going like, "Nah, man, kick the field goal"? Like, no, nah, man, kick the extra point. Yeah,
no, right. I'm like, let's go, ride or die. I'm like, let's go, man. It's football. Or this is a team sport at its finest, right there.
Yes,
do it, coach. We got your back. Press conference, don't worry about it. We got you.
Hey, well, listen, but this is this is a tough week. This way to start out the season, but we got the Bears next week. It's always a good game. They won. They beat the Niners, and we didn't even talk about how bad Soldier Field is. I think they're coming up to Green Bay, but
they're coming to Green Bay. Yeah, thank God, because
what
right now
a disaster that place is right now. And listen, Chicago. All these games, like you said very well, is they're all these teams are competing, and we still have to show that we have probably definitely the most talented roster. Can we compete at the level required to get where do we want to go? We haven't shown that yet.
We better. That's all I say. We better.
0-2 in division would be
because we already know what Chicago coming in for. We already know where their minds are. They pulled it out. They squeaked it out in a swampland in Soldier Field. I'm not talking about Louisiana. And against a good 49er team, too. That defense for the 49ers wasn't giving up nothing until once it got really slushy out there. Because footing was bad, so tackling is all off a little bit off. Footwork is a little bit off. It wasn't until the third, fourth quarter where Chicago kind of made do with mistakes 49ers made, but it wasn't big mistake. It was like little tic-tac things that they paid for by getting a touchdown, by giving up a touchdown to the Bears, Justin Fields, Aquamini, St. Brown, those guys making those simple little adjustments and not falling down pretty much, because it was like that. It was just Hubbard.
And the only thing I wanted to add is we don't know what the status of our tackles are, and I've been with Robert Quinn. I'm a big fan of Robert Quinn's, and Robert Quinn
he's a problem.
He is a real problem. He's a problem last year for us, and he's going to be a problem if we don't shore everything up. Hopefully we get back. Hopefully we get Jenkins back. Hopefully we get Lazard back. But we'll see what happens.
It's to see what happens, and we already know this. Like you mentioned Quinn. You mentioned all them players on the defensive side of the ball. They're watching that film, and they're going like, oh.
The formula is there right now, right?
Whoa, they see it. They see it as clear as day. The map is there. Minnesota has set a map for week 2 for the Bears. So it's just see how they're going to use that map. We'll see. That's why the games we played, regardless of what happened. It's a new you wipe the slate team come Wednesday, and now we're getting ready for the Bears. That's what those guys will be doing at 12:65. And I'm ready for one hell of a game on Sunday Night Football. I don't know about you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, we're gonna bring that. It brings the show to the end. So welcome. So thank you for tuning in. I'm all I'm all over the place here. I got a lot going on, but Mike, great job with the show today. Places where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Amon Green 30, all one word. And I got another gaming podcast I'll do. That's Amon Green's Gamers Lounge. That's 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, live on YouTube. Amon Green's Gamers Lounge. Check me out there. And Mike, let everybody know where you're at on social.
Yeah, Mike168 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. AG, always a pleasure, bud.
And always good. So we're going to be back next week to talk about that Bears recap and hopefully a win, like Mike mentioned earlier in the game. So we have good stuff to talk about. If not, we'll be eating crow again and talking about film breakdown and what they need to do to get better. All right, y'all. See y'all next week.